Quetzal says that will take a long time, namely around 2,400 years. Billy says, and will this comet also be able to be seen from the Earth with the naked eye, like with Halley's comet? Quetzal says yes, that will be possible. Billy says, and in sectarian circles, this will probably again be an occasion to make a doomsday scenario, as this will certainly also be the case with the solar eclipse appearing in Europe on the 11th of August, 1999, about which even Nostradamus has written, but which is misunderstood, unfortunately. Quetzal says, unfortunately, your words will prove to be true in a sad manner, because our predictions for these two events, along with others, unfortunately testify of great disaster, which will evoke delusional believers and religious sectarians. So unfortunately, in certain sectarian communities, it will come to mass murders and mass suicides, namely in Switzerland, in France and Canada, as well as in America and in other countries. Numerous individual suicides will also have to be lamented, and indeed, especially through the fault of the so-called psychics, fortune tellers, star interpreters and, thus, astrologers, who make absurd prognoses and who generate just as great anxiety in their believers and in the pseudo-scientific dreamers of an esoteric, ufological, and parascientific character, and so on. These culpable ones will also be the ones who will coin the term Black Sun for the solar eclipse. Billy says, I already imagined something like that, but the people still aren't more clever and aren't willing to acknowledge the facts of the effective truth and to think rationally when they are told the truth. They continue to walk along in their crazy beliefs, confusing themselves more and more, just through the influence of the sectarians, star interpreters, and fortune tellers, as well as through the esoteric and pseudo-parascientists, etc. But may I ask what you meant recently when you said that in 1999, one of my friends will finish his way? Quetzal says, it surprised me that you haven't already asked about it, since otherwise, you aren't reserved with your questions. Billy says, it was simply because I wanted to find out for myself as to what you could have meant with your words. Nevertheless, a result remained refused to me. Quetzal says, then I want to give you the necessary answer. In Jordan, you gained a friend, who was also your patron. Billy says, that was King Hussein too. Quetzal says, that is correct. My insinuation referred to him. Thus, I want to clarify and tell you that his years are numbered, for on the 7th of February, 1999, he will finish his life. Billy says, he is not only a good friend of mine, but he is also a remarkable and very good man who, like me, has already survived many assassination attempts on his life. But even he will have no choice but to go his way and will have to finish this, as you said. Quetzal says, that will be so. Billy says then to something else. You once told me that the religious sectarians will increasingly take on more blatant forms and will claim many human lives, for in the name of God or Allah, etc. many murders should be committed and many wars should be conducted. That this will come more and more is clear to me, because everything in the world, indeed, also points to this. But now, will everything actually be laid out in such a way for sectarianism to flare up again? Quetzal says, unfortunately, that will actually be the case, by what means in the future, many wars, murder and manslaughter, as well as suicides, and mass murders will belong to the general and global affairs of the day. Also, sectarianism will try to fight against homosexuality, in spite of all industrial and national efforts to make this acceptable in the form that homosexual and lesbian couples can form allied partnerships with each other. On the one hand, great efforts will be made in the future to recognize homosexuality as a natural form and to decriminalize this form, which is still often criminalized until now, but at the same time, everything will be ruined again by excessive sectarianism. This, especially through the religious, fundamentalist, Islamic, and Christian sectarian fanatics, who will even demand the death penalty for homosexuality and lesbianism, and who will also enforce the death penalty by themselves in various ways. And all this in the name of God, Allah, Jesus Christ, on love and justice. Concerning this, a particular Christian sect will spread itself worldwide, which has existed since 1955, tracing back to the insurance broker Arthur de Moss, who demanded that after his death, his big dollar fortune should be used for sectarian, respectively divine, purposes. Arthur de Moss was an American, how could it be otherwise, and the de Moss Foundation traces back to him, and around the turn of the millennium. This will be responsible for the fact that prominent people, such as politicians, sports heroes, and actors, etc., will make use of sectarian propaganda in public media, like in television and so on, in order to find new believers for sectarianism and the Christian religion. Billy says you've actually told me things of the future again, and this already for quite some time, even though you actually didn't want to talk about it anymore. Quetzal says the reason for this, I already explained to you some time ago. Moreover, I confine myself mainly to things and events that will first appear at or after the turn of the millennium. But this falls outside of what we had planned. Billy says, so this means that your prophecies, which you no longer wanted to explain, only shouldn't be given any more for the remainder of this century? Quetzal says that is correct. But this doesn't concern all things but only those things for which there would actually be an opportunity for the Earth people to change them, namely through better and rational actions, such that as a result negatives could be prevented. Billy says so prophecies, respectively things that must be regarded as such. Quetzal says that, too, is correct. We hold ourselves back from these, namely for the reason that until now, we've had the experience that all the prophecies, which were expertly made, bore no fruit and, thus, brought no change for the better. This is the reason why we release no more information in this regard but only limit ourselves to predictions that, as you know, will arrive in any case, for they are unchangeable since they are based on a previewing. Billy says I see. But you could have told me that already at the beginning, when you decided to give me information in this way in agreement with Ptah, if I remember correctly. Well, so in the future, I may surely ask you for predictions that are based on a preview and that are unalterable, if I correctly interpret your words in this form. Quetzal says that also lies in the meaning of my words. You judge my explanation correctly. Billy says, and how does it stand with things of the past? Quetzal says nothing stands in the way of a response to these, when you have appropriate questions, always provided that I possess the necessary knowledge for a pertinent answer. Billy says then I would like to ask you this last year, namely on the 21st of August, 1986, over 1,700 people died in addition to a lot of beasts, wild animals, and birds when in the Central African Cameroon, a poisonous gas cloud spread itself out. Unfortunately, the media gave no further information about this, which is why one stumbles around in the dark in relation to this. Do you know something more about this? Quetzal says yes. The poisonous gas cloud escaped out of the volcanic crater lake, which is approximately 2 square kilometers in size and over 200 meters deep, and beneath this, deep inside the earth, there are still immense magma chambers of the not yet extinct volcano, but the volcano does not make a superficial appearance. On the date mentioned by you, a poisonous gas cloud explosively escaped out of the volcanic crater lake, which is named Lake Neos. The village lying next to the lake is named Baaba, and in this, practically all life was extinguished by the poisonous gas. But that wasn't all, because within a radius of 25 kilometers, virtually the same thing happened, for all humans, birds, and animals were killed. Around 20,000 people including many children were seriously injured and were taken to hospitals. Lake Neos is situated in the middle of a volcanic chain of northern Cameroon. And as explained, the volcano under the lake isn't quite extinct yet, and the bubbling liquid magma is constantly releasing carbon dioxide, But this toxic gas doesn't escape into the atmosphere. Rather, through the high pressure of the masses of water at 200-meter depths, it combines